Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to really unpack the evolution of cybersecurity training.
Right. Looking at how it's shifting from that mandatory, completely sleep-inducing corporate compliance checkbox.
Yeah, the one we all just click through.
Exactly. Shifting from that into a personalized, continuous culture of security.
And for you listening, we're using a really detailed program document today. It's titled rhinooffers.pdf, and it's going to be our guide.
It's a fascinating read, honestly.
It really is. It outlines the current training ecosystem provided by Rhyno Cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And it spans from massive corporate boardrooms right down to your personal living room.
Which is a huge jump.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because usually when we talk about security, we picture something, well, highly physical, right?
Oh, absolutely. We imagine massive steel vaults, laser grids.
Right. State-of-the-art encryption, just locking down this impenetrable digital fortress.
And we tend to lean into that fortress model heavily. It feels absolute. I mean, we want to believe that if we just buy a big enough digital lock, the problem is permanently solved.
But then, you look at the reality of modern data breaches.
Yeah.
And suddenly you realize that massive steel vault has a flimsy little screen door attached to the side of it.
Yep.
And someone is just politely holding that screen door open for a guy wearing a fake mustache who says he's the IT inspector.
That is exactly it. The human element remains the ultimate vulnerability.
Right.
An organization can invest millions, literally millions, in deploying the most sophisticated zero-day threat prevention. But if an insider willingly hands over the credentials because they were manipulated,
Entire architecture fails.
completely fails. The premise of this Rhyno document operates on the reality that a company's defense is only as strong as its most vulnerable human link.
Which I guess brings us right to the corporate side of their offerings. Because historically, the approach to internal threats has usually been this grueling 2-hour seminar once a year.
The one everyone just mutes while eating a sandwich at their desk.
Exactly. But the Rhyno Corporate Academy lays out a totally different strategy here. They emphasize focusing on, quote, crucial behavior and delivering an employee-focused program.
And the phrasing there is really intentional. It signals a pivot from just dumping information on people to actual behavioral modification.
Right, because knowing the rules is one thing.
Yeah, and applying them under pressure, like when you get a frantic email from your boss, those are two very different cognitive functions.
So they achieve this through custom phishing simulations. And by delivering the training material in what they call smaller chunks.
For learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also use 2 employee self-assessments, one at the beginning and one at the end of the program. But, okay, here's the part that made me pause a bit.
Oh.
Yeah. One of their stated goals is identifying and reducing the number of high-risk employees.
Right.
Now, I have to push back on that. Doesn't the idea of tracking high-risk employees just breed a culture of corporate paranoia?
And I can see why you'd think that.
I mean, it feels like an environment of finger-pointing,
Yeah.
rather than the confident cybersecurity culture they advertise. It reminds me of a teacher constantly pointing out the one kid in class who always fails the pop quiz. Doesn't that just make the employee anxious?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the delivery method, those smaller chunks we talked about, it completely changes the psychological dynamic of being tested.
How so?
Well, if you rely on the old model of testing employees annually and just flagging the failures, yeah, you absolutely create that punitive, anxiety-inducing environment.
Right.
But relying on microlearning respects the reality of cognitive load. Adult learners don't rewrite their neural pathways through massive, infrequent data dumps.
Okay.
They build genuine behavioral reflexes through bite-sized contextual repetition.
So, if they click a bad link in a simulation on a Tuesday.
They get a 3-minute module specifically about that exact type of link on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Rather than a boring lecture 6 months later.
That's the mechanism at play. And it ties directly into their use of data storytelling.
Data storytelling. I saw that in the document.
Yeah. Instead of management just pulling a spreadsheet that lists who failed, they use the baseline self-assessment and the final assessment to map a behavioral vector over time.
Okay.
So data storytelling provides context. It allows leadership to see that, hey, maybe a specific department is struggling with a highly targeted type of fake invoice.
Rather than just labeling those specific employees as negligent or lazy.
Exactly. Management looks at the narrative of improvement. They can say, our marketing team is getting hammered by simulated vendor scams.
So let's adjust their microlearning to focus purely on verifying external vendors.
You've got it. It transforms a system designed to catch you failing into a system designed to build your reflexes.
That's actually a huge shift in perspective.
And from a macro perspective, that storytelling is vital for proving return on investment to auditors.
It's all for compliance.
Right. Strict compliance standards increasingly require companies to prove they are actively reducing their risk profile. Demonstrating a documented narrative of behavioral improvement satisfies that requirement far better than a static list of, who attended a seminar.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. You track the baseline, you respect the cognitive load with microdoses of training, and you map the ROI.
Exactly.
But that brings up a really practical problem.
What's that?
Building that genuine culture requires ongoing engagement. How do organizations actually deliver this without boring their staff to tears? Especially when the physical office doesn't even exist for a huge chunk of the workforce right now.
The fractured landscape of the modern workforce is, without a doubt, the defining challenge here.
Yeah, because looking at the source, Rhyno tackles this through customized lunch and learn sessions.
Right.
They offer these live in person or virtually, and a company can use them as just a standalone event or pair them with a broader one-year cybersecurity awareness training package.
The CSA package, yeah.
When I was reading this, I instantly thought of it like sneaking vegetables into a smoothie for a toddler.
Sneaking vegetables into a smoothie, how does that translate to corporate security?
Well, you're blending a relaxed face-to-face interaction, even if it's over a video call, with the rigidness of compliance training.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you frame it as a casual lunch and learn. You provide food or a relaxed atmosphere, and the employees consume critical threat awareness protocols without feeling like they're sitting in detention.
Right.
It just lowers their defensive filters.
Palatability is crucial. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this hybrid, flexible model is an absolute necessity right now.
Because everyone's remote.
Because the traditional perimeter of the core network has completely dissolved. We are operating in a zero-trust environment now.
The Rhyno text actually has a very specific quote that drives this whole transition. It simply says, quote, "Because your home may be your office."
The implications of that phrase are staggering when you really unpack them.
Tell me about it.
Endpoint security used to mean securing the devices physically located inside the corporate building. Now, the company's multi-million-dollar defense architecture is suddenly entirely reliant on an employee's consumer-grade Wi-Fi router.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, it sounds terrifying.
It is. If someone clicks a malicious link on their personal home network while simultaneously logged into a proprietary company database, the threat moves laterally.
So the corporate firewall is bypassed completely.
Completely bypassed, because the authenticated user basically invited the threat inside the house.
So the lines between professional and personal digital hygiene are just completely blurred at this point.
Exactly.
Which perfectly explains why Rhyno can't just stop at corporate packages. If the home is the office, the home needs the training infrastructure too.
Right.
And that transitions us right into their consumer offerings. They have this personal cybersecurity awareness training designed for individuals.
Yes, the personal package.
It costs $19.95 a month on a special offer that requires a yearly commitment, or you can just pay a flat $199 up front.
And the structure of that consumer package mirrors the corporate rigor we just talked about.
Right.
You receive 52 weeks of professional training videos, the 2 personal self-assessments to establish that behavioral baseline, and a certificate of completion.
Plus, they also include a monthly membership to their Purple Talk newsletter, right? For actionable updates on new threats.
Exactly.
I have to push back on this, though. I mean, realistically, who is going to pay $20 out of pocket every single month for corporate-style training videos?
You think it's a hard sell?
Well, isn't there a massive friction point in convincing consumers to care about their digital hygiene on their own dime?
Yeah.
We all just assume our email provider or our antivirus software is handling this stuff for us.
If the package were just a repository of training videos, it would be a tough sell. Absolutely. Yeah. But the actual value proposition, the real reason it justifies the subscription model, lies in the mechanism of modern threats. We're dealing with sophisticated AI-driven spear phishing now.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because you're talking about the expert support feature, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
Because the document explicitly states that for this monthly fee, you get 5 email requests per month to their support team.
Which is huge.
Right? You can forward a suspicious email directly to support@rhyno.io to actual cybersecurity professionals during standard business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.,
Yeah.
and ask them to evaluate it.
Yeah.
Isn't it wild that for $20 a month, you basically have a digital bodyguard on retainer?
A digital bodyguard is the exact role they're filling. To understand why a normal consumer needs this, we have to look at how threat actors operate today.
Right.
They aren't mass mailing poorly translated requests from fake royalty anymore.
No more Nigerian princes.
Exactly. Today, large language models can scrape a user's public social media, cross-reference their employment history from LinkedIn, and generate an email that mimics the exact tone and formatting of a service they actually use.
They know you use a specific cloud storage provider, they pull the official logos, the grammar is flawless, and they reference a project you literally just posted about last week.
The contextual relevance is terrifying. And because of that sophistication, the average person is experiencing profound decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue. Yeah.
Evaluating every single notification, text message, and inbox alert drains a massive amount of cognitive energy. Users are constantly asking themselves if a package tracking link is real or if a streaming service update is malware.
Which is incredibly exhausting.
It really is. So providing a direct line to a professional relieves the individual of that burden.
Because you can just ask someone.
Right. Being able to forward an email to an expert and say, hey, is this safe, allows the user to outsource their anxiety. They aren't paying for videos. They are paying to not have to second guess their own judgment constantly.
Wow. It empowers the user to act with confidence, which feeds directly back into that confident cybersecurity culture Rhyno is trying to build.
It's like having the bomb squad on speed dial so you don't have to sweat over cutting the red wire or the blue wire yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
But, okay, if average adults working from home are struggling with this level of decision fatigue, what happens to the demographics that are most aggressively targeted by cybercriminals?
Yeah.
Because we know who gets hit the hardest, and they usually don't have, like, corporate IT experience to fall back on.
You're talking about seniors.
Exactly. This brings us to how Rhyno explicitly alters its model for older generations.
Seniors are arguably the most vulnerable demographic out there, and the tactics used against them require a very specific counter strategy.
The source outlines the Rhyno Academy for seniors. It retains the robust framework of the standard personal package. You know, the 52 weeks of content, the self-assessments, the 5 expert email requests per month.
But they tweak it. Right. They add a dedicated senior section to the Purple Talk newsletter, and they offer it at a discounted rate of $15.95 a month, or $159 for the year.
And there's one other major difference.
Oh, the phone number. Most notably, they prominently feature a phone number to get started, 1-888-505-2989.
Highlighting a phone number and carving out dedicated content might seem like minor adjustments, but they address the fundamental psychology of how scams operate against the elderly.
It's like setting up a specialized neighborhood watch specifically for the most vulnerable houses on the block.
Yeah.
The corporate documentation mentioned social responsibility as a primary goal earlier, and this feels like the direct application of that. You aren't just protecting the remote worker, you're building an infrastructure to protect their parents.
This raises an important question about digital inclusion. Well, when we design security systems, we often assume a baseline level of digital fluency. But for a generation that didn't grow up with this technology seamlessly integrated into their daily lives, the threat landscape is incredibly isolating.
How does that isolation play out in these actual scams, though?
Scammers rely heavily on manufacturing agency and fear, which triggers an amygdala hijack in the victim.
An amygdala hijack.
Right. When a senior citizen is targeted, perhaps by a message claiming their bank account is frozen or, a family member is in jail and needs bail money, the technical problem is immediately compounded by pure emotional panic.
Oh, that's awful.
And if they do fall for it, or even if they just click a link they aren't sure about, the primary weapon the scammer relies on next is shame.
The victim is too embarrassed to tell anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Many seniors fear that admitting they were tricked will cause their families to question their independence or their cognitive abilities, so they hide it.
Oh, man.
By offering an analog solution to a digital problem, a 1-888 number, and a dedicated email lifeline, Rhyno bypasses that family dynamic entirely.
They remove the judgment from the equation.
They do.
The senior doesn't have to confess to their children that they clicked something suspicious. They can just reach out to an impartial professional.
Providing that human touch to a cold, technical issue really bridges the gap. It tells the user that they are not alone in this digital wilderness. The open, non-judgmental line of communication is actually a far more effective defense than any software filter could ever be.
So what does this all mean? If we look at the journey we've just taken you on through this source material,
Mm,
we are watching an entire industry pivot.
absolutely.
We started at the corporate level, seeing how microlearning and data storytelling are replacing those punitive annual seminars, right? Helping map behavioral vectors instead of just shaming employees.
We are seeing the required shift from rote compliance to imbued culture.
Then we followed the modern worker home. We saw how zero-trust architecture and the blurring lines of remote work mean the company firewall is only as strong as the employee's living room Wi-Fi.
Which is a scary thought.
Is. And that necessitates a personal subscription-based defense, the digital bodyguard that helps outsource the profound decision fatigue caused by AI-driven phishing.
Right.
And finally, we saw how that same framework is adapted to protect seniors, using analog tools like a phone line to dismantle the shame and isolation that scammers rely on.
The overarching takeaway for me is the sheer ubiquity of the threat. The perimeter is gone, which means our defensive solutions have to weave into every aspect of our daily routines.
Yeah.
It leaves us with a lingering thought regarding the future, actually.
What's that?
We have clearly reached a point where we require monthly subscription services and dedicated expert lifelines just to safely open our digital mail.
Right.
As this technology continues to evolve and the threats become even more seamlessly integrated into our lives, will personal cybersecurity soon become a fundamental life skill taught from early childhood? Will identifying a manipulated sender address or, verifying the context of a digital request become just as instinctual and just as rigorously drilled into us as teaching a child to look both ways before crossing the street?
Looking both ways before crossing the digital street.
Yeah.
That is a wild thought to leave on, but it feels entirely inevitable.
It really does.
Because, like we said at the very beginning, you can build the strongest, most impenetrable steel vault in the world, but none of it matters if we don't properly train the person standing at the screen door. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.